By the late 19th century, the British Empire functioned as an industrialized military force, controlling a quarter of the world's population. They maintained this authority through a global network of naval power and heavy artillery. The British administration faced a challenge from a London-trained lawyer in Gujarat. He possessed no military rank, held no public office, and lived as a rural peasant. For India to achieve its independence through a conventional armed conflict would have required resources the country simply did not have. A direct confrontation with British infantry was a tactical impossibility. Gandhi's strategy, known as Satyagraha, relied on a different mechanism. It was designed as a form of resistance that used non-violent non-cooperation to force the British administration to confront the ethical and financial costs of their own occupation. This strategy began to take shape in 1893 at the Pietermaritzburg railway station in South Africa. Despite holding a valid first-class ticket, Gandhi was removed from a train because of his race. Spending the night on this cold platform shifted Gandhi's focus. He stopped seeking a place within the British legal establishment and began researching how to systematically challenge the laws themselves. He spent the next 2 decades training volunteers at communal settlements like Tolstoy Farm. Here, he established a disciplined network of resistors who were conditioned to endure police violence without retreating or retaliating. South Africa served as a training ground where the abstract concept of nonviolence was refined into a repeatable tactic for political mobilization. When Gandhi returned to India in 1915, he spent a year traveling the country by rail. He traveled in third-class carriages specifically to observe the economic realities of India's rural villages. In the Champaran district of Bihar, he found a population of tenant farmers living in extreme poverty. British plantation owners forced these farmers to grow indigo under a system that left the local population without a stable food supply. In 1917, Gandhi launched a massive investigative campaign. Instead of calling for an immediate uprising, he and his team recorded the detailed testimonies of 8,000 individual farmers to build a factual record of their treatment. This data-driven approach forced the British administration to yield. By using their own legal standards against them, Gandhi proved that Satyagraha was a functional tool for reform on Indian soil. In 1919, British troops fired on a peaceful crowd in Amritsar, killing hundreds of unarmed civilians. This event at Jallianwala Bagh ended Gandhi's belief that the empire would ever govern India with justice. He responded by launching the non-cooperation movement in 1920. This was the first time his resistance strategies were deployed across the entire country, calling for a total boycott of British goods and institutions. To undermine the British textile monopoly, Gandhi promoted the use of the charkha. He reframed the spinning wheel as a tool for economic self-sufficiency, urging Indians to spin their own cotton rather than buying British imports. This chart tracks the resulting shift in the market. As domestic production of homespun fabric increased, there was a measurable drop in the revenue generated by British textile imports. Even as the movement gained momentum, Gandhi maintained strict control over its methods. When a mob turned violent in Chowri Chowra in 1922, he immediately called off the national campaign to ensure the movement remained nonviolent. By 1930, the British salt tax had become a symbol of imperial control. Because salt was a basic biological necessity, the monopoly on its production and sale affected every household in India. In response, Gandhi led a 388-kilometer march to the coast at Dandi. There, in front of a global press corps, he illegally gathered a handful of salt from the shoreline. This created a specific political dilemma for the British. If they arrested Gandhi for picking up sand, they would appear overly aggressive to the international community. If they ignored him, they effectively admitted that British law was no longer being followed in India. The resulting mass arrests and global attention forced the British viceroy into direct negotiations. This march proved that symbolic acts of defiance could neutralize the perceived authority of the colonial government. The onset of the Second World War in 1942 left the British military focused on survival in Europe and Asia. Their administrative control over India became increasingly difficult to sustain. Gandhi seized this moment to launch the Quit India movement. He issued his most direct ultimatum to the Indian people, telling them that this was the final phase of the struggle, and they must do or die in their effort to secure immediate independence. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill's government arrested the entire Indian leadership in an attempt to stop the movement. However, the uprising continued without a central headquarters. This final stage of the conflict showed that the strategy had transitioned into a self-sustained civilian revolt. The movement no longer relied on Gandhi's direct presence to continue its pressure on the colonial government. When independence was finally achieved in August 1947, the victory was complicated. Territorial partition divided the country into India and Pakistan, triggering a wave of communal violence. While others celebrated the new government in Delhi, Gandhi spent the day in the villages of Bengal. He traveled barefoot through areas hit by rioting, using his presence to discourage further violence between communities. In January 1948, Gandhi was assassinated in Delhi on his way to a prayer meeting. This memorial at Rajghat marks the site where he was cremated. Gandhi's strategy did not resolve every division in Indian society, but it successfully ended British rule. He demonstrated that a coordinated, disciplined effort of non-cooperation could be used to dissemble the political authority of an empire.